And I will end on this note. When Islamic scholars and leaders use words like peace, freedom, justice, terrorism, innocence, human rights, suicide, if you want to understand what they're meaning, they don't mean those words the same way you or I use those words. You have to filter what Islamic scholars say from English to English through the filter of Sharia. So when a jihadi organization like Adam Center or ISNA or CARE and those leaders use the term peace, they mean peace when the entire planet is under Sharia, that is peace. When they say freedom, they mean freedom from man-made laws. When they say justice, there's only justice under Sharia. When they condemn terrorism, well, terrorism under Sharia is killing a Muslim without right, so of course they condemn terrorism. When they talk about innocence, only Muslims are innocent under Sharia. When they talk about human rights, the OIC internationally and under Sharia has defined human rights to mean Sharia, the implementation of Sharia. That is human rights. And so on that, I think what we'll do is we're going to take some questions on this, and thank you all for your time, and I'll hopefully have some good questions here. I'm sure we will.
Excellent. And we're about 3,400 streams.
That is great.
So about, if you just have 2 people per stream, you're getting the 7,000 range. And some of these living rooms got 5 to 10 people. So a lot of you are very interested in this topic. And again, one reason why is because this is not being covered by the media.
Yeah.
You're not even going to see this on Fox News, some of it.
Yeah.
Some of it you'll see, some of it you won't.
And they're certainly not teaching this at the State Department or to federal agents that have a duty and obligation to learn this.
Absolutely not. info@worldviewweekend.com. We'll take a few minutes of questions and call it a conference, and we'll be ending ahead of schedule. It's great when conferences stay on schedule, is it not? info@worldviewweekend.com if you'd like to send in a few questions for Chris. Again, their website is understandingthethreat.com. And don't forget, we carry their weekly radio show that we ask them to produce. We carry it exclusively at worldviewradio.com. Exclusively, we carry it at worldviewradio.com. If you would like to get our free app that allows you to take our radio and TV shows on the go, you can download our free app for your iPhone, iPad, Android what is the website? WVW-TV.com/app. WVW-TV.com/app. Again, don't forget about our free Roku channel. If you'd like to find out how you can download that, details at WVW-TV.com/Roku as well. Okay? All right, Chris, here we go. That's someone just saying, great conference, learning so much, especially about Islam, from Zoe. Thank you, Zoe. Let's see. Here is a question from Zoe, another email. Does Sharia have standing in U.S. courts, especially on non-Muslims?
No, not at all. Not constitutionally, it doesn't.
But have we seen some judges, when it comes to Muslims, say we'll give them a lighter sentence because under Sharia, that's what they're used to?
Okay, so from the legal standpoint, we're not at the point yet where we have civil courts that are recognizing Sharia. That is taking place in Europe. What we are seeing is the implementation of Sharia outside of the courts. And actually, there are examples within the courts.
Didn't some guy behead his wife or something, or something happened and the judge made some kind of excuse about, well, this is what's in his culture?
Yeah, see, and that's the thing, that it's being done in the courts. There are cases where this has been considered, which is why there's legislation around the country, American laws for American courts. But we do this every day. We implement Islamic law to ourselves every day. I mean, you think about, why is it so difficult to have a rational, honest discussion about this topic? Mm-hmm. Because we're implementing the Islamic law of slander on ourselves.
So when you and I go into communities and you host your Understanding the Times, Understanding the Threat events, and we host our Worldview Weekend rallies, and we have people complain and they pull the hotel ballroom from us, that's a form of Sharia.
Absolutely. There's so many examples. I mean, we do this to ourselves. When you have General Petraeus, a sitting 4-star general, telling from Afghanistan, telling a pastor in Florida that he can't burn a book, a Quran, that is the implementation of the Islamic law of slander on us by a sitting 4-star general. So this happens all over the country every day. When this is called hate speech and people don't speak about it, that's the implementation of the Islamic law of slander on ourselves.
All right, info@worldviewweekend.com. A few more questions. info@worldviewweekend.com. Let's see here. There's more coming in. Shia versus Sunni. Dr. Tom wants to know. Shia versus Sunni.
Okay.
Which would also be Shiites as well versus
Right.
Sunni.
Right.
Iran would be your Shiites. Saudi Arabia would be your Sunnis.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a good way. That's a good from a nation state standpoint. All right. Briefly, one of the main differences between Sunni and Shia is simply this. By the way, about 85% of Muslims around the world are Sunni, about 15% are Shia. The Sunnis believe that the leader or the caliph is supposed to come from the community. The Shia believes the leader is supposed to come, of the caliphate is supposed to come from a bloodline descendant of Muhammad. That's really one of the main differences. One of the other main differences is the Sunni believe in the concept of ijma. Once a matter has been ruled upon under the Sharia, that matter is settled for all time. The Shia believe that the Ayatollah can reinterpret some of that. Here's what's really important for everyone to know. When it comes to Sunni or Shia, yes, they will fight each other, but when it comes to us, the non-Muslim world, there is 100% of agreement on the matter that they need to wage jihad until the non-Muslim world is subjugated under Sharia. There's no difference when it comes to that.
Wow. All right, let's see. A couple more. Here's another one coming in. In your book, Muslim Mafia, do you go into specific details about your undercover operation, or is it just facts?
No, there are more, details about the undercover operation, and then there are also some of the documents that we pulled. We preserved 12,000 pages of evidence during the course of that project, and many of those documents are in the back of the book, which is why CARE. One of the main reasons CARE is suing us is because they want those documents pulled off the shelf because they don't want the American people to know what they've been up to.
Wow. And when do you think that'll go to court? It's in the courts now, but when do you think that'll all be resolved? Any idea?
I've been told we're going to trial any day now for the last 3.5 years.
Really?
So we'll see. This is all about an 8-year trial. I will say this: all of the pre-trial is completely completed. So. That occurred in March. From my understanding, we are at the point now where I would be very surprised if we made it through next year and didn't go to trial.
Here's someone watching wants to know: are there any of our government officials that are understanding any of this, or has the deep state gotten total control?
I'm hesitant to say complete and total control, but look, the vast majority of our leadership is catastrophically clueless on this issue. Are there people that have more of an understanding than others? Of course. Unfortunately, we just had the person that had probably the best understanding of this in the entire administration, Rich Higgins, who
Yes.
was at the National Security Council, is no longer, he was fired by General McMaster. And so look, we need, if we're going to win this war, we need the vast majority of our leaders and war fighters to understand this threat right now. As we stand now, we have a handful of our leaders that understand this threat.
Here's a question from Glenn. He wants to know: how do I advise my college son who is befriended by a Muslim college male student? My son thinks there is nothing to be concerned about. Should we be concerned? Let me also add to that. What would you also say to the family members watching whose daughter is being wooed by a Muslim man?
Yeah, look, this is a major point of concern because if it's somebody in my family, I do everything I can to prevent that. Because here's what's hard for people. Are there Muslims that are good people? Sure. They're good people in spite of the teachings of Islam, not because of them. And any day that Muslim, particularly after people get married, right? A lot of times people change their lifestyle after they get married. That Muslim starts going to mosque, that Muslim starts adhering to Sharia, and there's a high likelihood that you end up losing your daughter. And so, and I don't mean just killed. I mean you no longer she's no longer able to interact with family at functions, and that may not be the example for everyone, right? But that's always the goal. The goal is always to pull them away, to make them fully Sharia adherent, and so that's a major concern. And I want to make one more point on that, Brannon, and I think John's mentioned this, but we reiterate this all the time, is that just because you have someone that your neighbor or your friend or someone in college that is nice and they're a good person, they could still believe all of this and be lying. But even if they don't understand this, even if they're a Muslim that just never reads Quran, never goes to mosque, it doesn't mean that they represent a different version of Islam. Islam is Islam. It's the same Islam that we've been talking about here today. It's the same Islam of 1400 years. It doesn't mean not every Muslim follows it, but it doesn't mean that one that doesn't is a different version of Islam.
Oh, wow. Here is somebody from Montana. Corinne wants to know and she's just blown away by the conference and all the information. She says, do you believe that in the coming years that Sharia will be made law in the U.S.? Or maybe even I'll add to her question, what do you think is going to be going on in places like Dearborn, Michigan, and some of these other pockets? Do you think eventually our courts are going to let them kind of do their thing?
Well, it would be unconstitutional if
Yeah.
they did, but apparently the Constitution doesn't necessarily mean the same these days that it used to. Look, we're already seeing, it's our assessment and understanding the threat that places like the UK and certain parts of Europe will become Islamic states. Here in the United States, where you have an Islamic community set up, you have Sharia. And the goal, as I talked about progressively in Progressive Revelation, is to move to those points where it starts in civil law and where they're allowed to practice it civilly, and then, of course, criminally, and then every aspect of life. So it's always the goal, but they're already practicing Sharia right now here in the United States. The goal is to be able to fully practice Sharia in every aspect of life, including criminal law. But they're going to work progressively to do that until they get to that point.
Tell me what you think about this guy running for governor in Michigan.
There's a Muslim running in Michigan for governor.
They call him Obama 2.0.
Yeah, and from conversations I've had, the research that I've done, it looks like that he actually has a pretty decent chance of winning this. This is
and
absurd.
The word is, as soon as he wins being governor in Michigan, they're going to put him up to run for president.
Yeah, you know, our laws here in the United States are based on the law of nature, and nature's God, Holy Scripture. This is a Christian nation. How can you get leaders that do not believe that and that don't adhere to that and to protect and defend the Constitution here in the United States? That's a real problem for me. And so that shouldn't be happening anywhere. I mean, I use the example of Keith Ellison, Congressman Keith Ellison. Out of
And by the way, I don't know if in any of your talks you mentioned this. I know you have mentioned it to us on radio, but did you mention any interaction you had with him on these presentations?
I don't know if I did, but I can
think
tell
you did.
everybody.
Well,
Yeah. So
tell those who maybe don't know who Keith Ellison is. He's from Minnesota. He's a Muslim. He was sworn into Congress with his hand on a Quran, correct?
That's right.
He was almost going to be the head of the Democratic National Committee.
He's the deputy chair, I understand.
He is now to be chair, but he was going to be the head of it.
Yeah,
That's how far they've gone. They almost put him.
Yeah.
But you were in private meetings when you were undercover.
Mm-hmm.
When you were undercover, you were up on Capitol Hill in meetings with him. What kind of things was he saying their goals were?
I was at the Capitol building, and we were praying because they have Friday prayers at the Capitol building, which just goes to how absurd we've gotten in this war. And there were Muslims doing the prayer on Friday. Keith Ellison was speaking to all the Muslims, and he said this was a time when, this was in 2008, Andre Carson had just been elected the second Muslim congressman. Keith Ellison was the first Muslim congressman. And he was telling the Muslims, we now have a second Muslim congressman. And then he started telling all the Muslims in the audience, and inshallah, which is Allah willing, inshallah, the next election we'll have 4 Muslim congressmen. And inshallah, the next election we'll have 8. And he got all the way up into the 30s. And again, everybody, all the Muslims excited around him, Allahu Akbar, everybody's happy, because that's the goal. It's always the goal to conquer non-Muslim lands and subjugate everybody under Islamic law.
And a special blessing comes to Muslims that go to non-Muslim lands, correct?
Yep, that's the hijra, immigrating for the establishment of the religion. Mm-hmm. Yeah.